Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of A Brief History Of, and today we'll be looking at the mysterious disappearance of Flight 19. Think of a mysterious place, somewhere that is known for things to go missing. Well, I would hazard a guess that you might be thinking about the Bermuda Triangle, and not that weird spot under your car seat where all your change, pens and lighters disappear to. The Bermuda Triangle has gone down in history as the place where you go to disappear. However, in reality, it is one of the most used shipping lanes in the world. But talking about the hundreds of successful journeys made every day wouldn't make a good video. Today we'll be looking at one of the unsuccessful journeys within the Devil's Triangle, the ill-fated Flight 19 on the 5th of December 1945. For a bit of context, the Bermuda Triangle is, well, rather, obviously a triangle. Its three corners touching Florida to the north, the island of Bermuda even more to the north and a little to the east, and Puerto Rico to the south. Due to its location, the triangle is navigated for many journeys to and from the Caribbean and both North and South America. Needless to say, if you've been anywhere around this map, you've probably been within or very close to the triangle. I could probably make an hour-long video on all the mysteries involved within the area, for example the USS Cyclops or the Carroll A. Deering incident, but I fancy doing something more air-based this week. Flight 19 was the name given to a training group of 5 Grumman TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, led by trainer Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, undertaking an exercise called Navigation Problem 1. The training scenario involved navigation to and bombing a target, and was designed to teach dead reckoning principles to the trainee pilots of Flight 19. The exercise was planned to be undertaken by several different flights throughout the day and was a common form of training. The exercise consisted of 4 legs. After takeoff, they would fly roughly due east for 56 nautical miles to undertake a low-level bombing practice at Hen and Chicken Shoals. The flight was to continue for another 67 nautical miles before turning onto a course of 346 degrees for 73 nautical miles, in doing so flying over Grand Bahama Island. The next scheduled turn was a heading of 241 degrees to fly 120 nautical miles, completing the exercise. The flight were based out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Taylor had an impressive amount of experience on the Grumman TBM, with around 2,500 flying hours. He even had done a tour in the Pacific Theatre and had recently transferred to Fort Lauderdale from Miami, where he had also been an instructor. Each of the trainee pilots had done around 300 total hours of flying time, with around 60 hours flying this particular aircraft. Which isn't too bad, so needless to say these guys weren't a bunch of noobs out for a first time go. The trainee pilots were Captain Edward Joseph Powers and George William Stivers, Second Lieutenant Forrest James Gerber and USN Ensign Joseph Tipton Bossing. Each plane would carry a crew of 3 except Forrester's plane, which lacked a third man. Before the flight took off, the planes were fully fueled, and during the pre-flight checks, it was discovered that each plane was missing its onboard clock, which is bizarre as the exercise was intended to teach the pilots how to navigate using elapsed time. But it was assumed that each man would have their own timekeeping device on their person. It's kinda strange that every plane lacked a watch, but maybe that's how they used to do it back then. The exercise was scheduled to begin with a 13:45 takeoff time. However, Taylor arrived late and the flight didn't take off until 14:10. Throughout the flight, the radio broadcast between the planes could be picked up by other aircraft as well as at the base. It seems the first leg, the bombing run on the Hen and Chicken Shoals, was completed as at 1500 hours, radio transmissions were picked up confirming the last bomb had been dropped. This is the point where things started to go wrong. It seems that the flight got lost after the second leg, which was the part where they turned 346 degrees north to pass over Grand Bahama. Lieutenant Robert F. Cox in FT-74, the instructor of another flight carrying out the same exercise, overheard a transmission around 1540 between an unknown crew member and trainee pilot Powers. Asking for a compass heading, Powers replied, "I don't know where we are, we must have got lost after the last turn." Cox immediately transmitted, "This is FT-74, plane or boat calling Powers, please identify yourself so someone can help you." A man came on claiming to be FT-28, which was Taylor. "Both of my compasses are out and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am overland but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys but I don't know how far down and I don't know how to get back to Fort Lauderdale." Cox notified the air station of the unfolding situation with Flight 19. What is bizarre is how Taylor thought he was over Florida Keys, which should not make sense as less than an hour earlier he had passed correctly over his scheduled bombing run. And to be over the Keys would mean the flight would have had drifted off course by hundreds of miles. Taylor was recently transferred from Miami, and many think that this might have caused the confusion as he had misread the coast of the Bahamas as the Keys. Even more strange is that Taylor decided to turn northeast in the hope of finding Florida, but unfortunately dooming the flight to travel further out to sea. This was directly against what pilots were told to do if they found themselves lost in the Atlantic Ocean, which is to point their plane towards the setting sun and fly west. Radio transmissions showed that some of the pilots knew Taylor was making a fateful mistake. Damn it, if we could just fly west we would get home. Head west, damn it. To add insult to injury, a weather front began to close in, adding further confusion to Flight 19. Taylor eventually saw sense and radioed in around 1724, "We'll fly 270 degrees west until landfall or running out of gas." By this time, the flight was nearly 200 nautical miles off course. Around 1800 hours, Taylor had decided to fly east again and radioed to the flight. Holding 270, "We didn't fly far enough east. We may as well turn around and fly east again." Their fate was sealed as the weather began to close in and the sun had set, losing their only salvation of a westward heading. At 1820, the flight's last transmission was heard. "All planes close up tight. We have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we'll all go down together." After this, the flight went silent and the radio went to static. Straight away, the Navy sent out search planes to try and find the lost flight. 2 PBM mariners were dispatched from Fort Lauderdale, and in under half an hour, one of the planes followed in Flight 19's footsteps and itself went missing. The plane and its crew were never found, but reports from local shipping are said to have witnessed the seaplane blew up after takeoff. In the first flight, the Navy sent out 300 planes and boats to try and find the now 6 lost aircraft and crews. 5 days and 300,000 miles of searching showed no bodies or aircraft. It was like Flight 19 just vanished into thin air. The 500-page Navy report attributed the event to Taylor misreading his compass to be not working and misreading the terrain around him, and each heading he took actually sent him further away from home. There seems to be some confusion between the control tower and Taylor by telling him to head west, and Taylor misreading his compass actually sent him northwest, running parallel to Florida, further sending them out to sea. After a while they had run out of fuel and their fate was sealed. It was found that Taylor was underprepared for the flight and didn't bring with him a watch or a plotting board, and had a history of getting lost before. The loss of the PBM was chalked down to a mid-air explosion, which was sadly a common trait of that particular aircraft. Scarily, they even had a nickname of flying gas tanks due to their propensity to explode for no reason. And officially, the case of Flight 19 went down as cause unknown. The actions of Taylor are no doubtedly odd, as the experienced pilot shouldn't have made such a simple error. His actions before the exercise are odd to say the least, as he showed up several minutes late to the pre-flight briefing and asked to be excused from leading the mission, saying that he just didn't want to take the flight out. The evidence points that Taylor wasn't fit for duty, as this particular exercise was essentially a bread and butter run for a pilot with as many hours as him under his belt. It is sad that a total of 27, including the crew of the PBM, and it's just as sad that their bodies were never found. Many other theories have been thrown around, with the event being referenced in pop culture over the years, most notably in 1977 in the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The event helped to solidify the Bermuda Triangle as a mysterious place in the minds of many. The most likely cause of the disaster was an unprepared instructor, possibly due to fatigue and a culture of not wanting to disobey your commanding officer, as shown by the flight carrying on a doomed heading even when at least one pilot questioned the instruction but still carried on to fly to their watery fate. What do you think caused the loss of Flight 19? Let me know your theories down below in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching. Did you enjoy the video? I hope you did. If that's the case, leave a like and a comment below. New episodes are released every Thursday, and the best way to see them is via subscription. You can help the channel grow by sharing videos with your friends, and there's also a Patreon link down below if you fancy financially supporting the channel. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.